when two furries with a common interest in gore and a load of mental health issues between them started dating and began to isolate themselves from the world. Things quickly and drastically went downhill for the both of them. They started a business together, making fursuits, a business that has now been tainted by their crimes and the knowledge of how they actually made the suits. By this point, we've talked about all sorts of different internet subcultures on this channel. And when it comes to virtually any group out there, there's always going to be some extremes. Usually, those extremes are fairly harmless in the end, mostly just kind of becoming objects of ridicule. At other times, though, like in this case, they can be some of the most heinous people you could imagine. This is the story of two furries, Jacob Berkowitz and Tanya Dillard. At the time of this incident, Jacob was 24 years old while Tanya was 27. Jacob has been described as a mere furry fan, and it doesn't seem that he had that much of an online presence. On the other hand, Tanya had been very active online for years and years, especially within the furry community, where she had a number of different accounts under different names. Tanya had been active in the furry scene ever since she was a young teen, mainly having been interested in drawing the content. Tanya was a brony as well, posting pictures of her self-made pony characters from time to time. By the time Tanya was 20 years old, she even got into making fursuits herself. It appears that Jacob and Tanya came to start dating in, or around 2019. The two were a match made in hell from the very start. Both of them had extensive mental health issues. Quite the opposite, as it looks like all they did was exasperate the other's problems. Both of them seemed to go into mental breakdowns at exactly the same time. They both seemed to be dealing with the same types of trauma and would dwell on it together. Instead of finding a way out of it, they would bring each other down until the two of them were debating hospitalization. However, as we will come to find, some of these claims may have been an exaggeration at the least, or an outright lie at the most. At times, the couple did seem to portray themselves as normal and happy. They would post pictures of their new apartment, their workshop, and their process in creating art. They would very often post pictures and videos of their dog, Castile, usually gushing about how smart he was. Tanya would often post that Jacob and Castile were the only things that kept her going in life. Tanya had started a business together with her ex-boyfriend, one that she called Lockjaw Arts. After breaking up with her ex, she decided that she would continue this business with Jacob, working out of Las Vegas. The two of them collaborated together in making both furry-related art and fursuits. They chose the name Lockjaw due to Tanya claiming to suffer from TMJ herself. While it appears that Tanya had a job at Target at some point, going off of their social media posts, they began to focus on this venture entirely. On her website, Tanya stated that she owned 2 dogs and a ferret. She listed her interests as healthy food, animals, gothic anything, ravens, and notably gore. Lockjaw, however, was not a fine-oiled machine. Business was a complete disaster. And that mainly came down to the fact that most of their fursuits were finished far beyond schedule, or were uneven finished at all. With the delays and undelivered promises came a constant, never-ending mountain of excuses on their official business accounts. For example, Tanya was so overwhelmed that she needed Jacob to post a message saying so on her behalf. Both of them needed to check into the hospital at the same time for family-related abuse they suffered in childhood. They were both dealing with mental breakdowns. Tanya posted a picture of a broken cell phone saying that it got run over by a bus, leading to her not being able to work on the fursuits for some reason. They were being bothered by a landlord that they called a slumlord, putting them in an unspecified, dangerous living situation that kept them too distracted from work. They were getting unspecified threats from both a random crazy lady and the slumlord. Tanya was then suddenly shutting down with no explanation given. Tanya was then having discomfort in the hands. They were then busy dealing with police involving the previous crazy lady, and then they were needing to take some mental health days. It seems that this one, after all of the other excuses, made customers angry as Jacob, on Tanya's behalf, said that they had zero intention to screw people over and that customers should DM him. This was followed by not answering those DMs and by saying that Tanya was in the hospital. Tanya would later say that she had been in the hospital for depression and other factors without elaborating too much. Tanya did state, however, that the couple never going outside had probably contributed to their depression. If this doesn't give a good impression of how chaotic their business was and how frustrated customers had grown, this selection of their excuses took place over less than 2 months. It seems like in the long run, they had actually finished pretty few of their orders in total. This led to the two of them struggling financially, never being able to pay rent, and struggling to find a place where they could live. Ultimately, that was a big part of what would send the two over the edge. In March of 2020, about a month after their claims of Tanya being hospitalized, the two of them decided to hatch a plan. It seems that they didn't have a car, and they came up with a very roundabout way of acquiring one. Jacob and Tanya decided to make a post on Craigslist under the personals section. There, they would look for someone who was interested in having a threesome with the two of them. Kill that person and take their car, and they would use that car to go live happily ever after in the woods. One man surprisingly agreed to partake in their offer of a threesome, that being 24-year-old Hector Mendes Hernandez. He drove out to where Jacob and Tanya were staying and picked them up. Then he took them back to his home in the Northeast Valley. Once they got back into the home, it seems that the three stayed together overnight. At some point, Jacob and Tanya robbed him and attacked him while he was standing in the bathroom. Tanya held him down while Jacob beat him with a dumbbell, which resulted in his death. Still, he was further stabbed 25 times in the upper chest afterward, and even shot 4 times. 2 of the shots being in the head. They left his body there in the bathroom where they continued with their plans. Tanya had been active and talking on Discord throughout a good portion of this time. A friend named Paige Ferguson was active in the chat when Tanya revealed something truly horrifying, something that wasn't even related to the murder. Tanya admitted that she and Jacob had killed and skinned their dog, the one they seemed to dote on so much. They said that this was done in order to use the dog's pelt in one of their fursuits. Ultimately, it seems like this wasn't even their first rodeo when it came to such acts. Another confirmed source who knew the couple but wished to remain anonymous later. The couple had admitted to adopting animals from rescue centers, killing them, and using their fur and other suits they had sold online. It seems that nobody had thought they were serious until this incident. When this friend came to completely freak out about the killing of the dog, Tanya came to confess the current ongoing murder plot to the same friend as well, saying, "If you think that is strange, I'm sitting next to a dead body." Tanya then took pictures of the man's corpse in the bathroom and sent them to this friend. She said that they had been in the home with the victim's body for about 10 hours. We're now going to put the body in the refrigerator and steal the victim's car. Adding that this was, in her words, handed to her on a silver platter. She bragged, saying, "I am now officially a psychopath." While admitting to murder and killing their pet was all fine and dandy in their minds, instead telling the friend that they had requested a ride to California instead. Tanya then continued to tell this friend that it would be both her first and last time in prison, and that she felt she could hold her own. When it came to killing her own beloved dog, she said that she didn't care. She was only upset that now she would lose his pelt and wouldn't be able to turn it into a fursuit. Tanya then said that they were debating on hiding the man's body somewhere in California. Tanya ended the conversation by telling Paige not to tell anyone about this unless it came out on the news, in which case she insisted that Paige tell everyone about what had happened. Paige didn't listen, saying, "That's not something I can hold. I have to tell the police." Paige went to the Spring Valley Area Command in order to notify the police about what had happened in person, showing them Tanya's messages and the images of the body that she had been sent. She relayed the killing of the dog that she had been told about earlier on in the day as well. The police, seeing that this was all clearly real, made their way out to the home on the 2200 block of North Crooked Street at around 5 p.m. to investigate. The police set up surveillance around the home. It was unlong before they saw Jacob and Tanya leaving the house and hopping into the victim's car. To their surprise, Jacob blabbed and told them that their victim's body was in the bathroom of the home they had just left. Pretty immediately upon being asked a couple of questions, the officers took the two of them aside and made their way into the home themselves. There they found the victim's body in the bathroom, just as it was said to be. At first, Jacob said that he was very upset the victim had tried to kiss Tanya, which led to the murder, acting as if that would be a justifiable reason for him beating him to death in his bathroom. When that didn't seem to bring the police to his side, he said that the victim had tried to touch her thigh. That similarly didn't persuade them. Jacob continued to maintain that he had beaten, stabbed, and shot the man in retaliation for touching Tanya's leg. He admitted that the man was completely unarmed, though. When realizing that this wasn't a good look, he said that the victim had punched him, leading to him shooting in self-defense with a gun that Tanya had bought from a pawn shop. However, it wasn't too long before the couple actually started admitting to everything honestly. Tanya fully admitted that the whole thing was pre-planned. She told the police how they had created the Craigslist ad in order to lure the victim in with promises of sex so that they could kill him. They could steal his car and go live in the woods together. She said that once they had the victim alone at his home, Tanya distracted him while Jacob opened fire on him with a gun. Still, this wasn't completely honest, as the autopsy showed that the beating was the actual cause of death. Eventually, the police were able to get Tanya to admit that she didn't distract him. She had fully participated by holding him down. With all of that, Jacob and Tanya were taken to the Clark County Detention Center and held on numerous charges. They were looking at charges of murder with a deadly weapon, conspiracy to commit murder, robbery with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery. Their prospects were not looking good. From custody, she demanded that the police tell them to use he/him pronouns and change the articles to use the name Vincent instead. Many were confused as to why this was even a point of contention, as Tanya used all pronouns online, she, they, and he, and had gone by a myriad of different names all at once. Surprisingly, Tanya wasn't even the only one who took great offense to this. Paige Ferguson, the friend who Tanya had admitted the crimes to, came out in her defense as well. While originally Paige was fully concerned with the murder and the trauma that resulted from seeing the pictures, that quickly came to change when the usage of pronouns became a huge ordeal. Paige came to speak to the media, also demanding the correct usage of pronouns. Demanding changes by saying, despite what the problematic article states, their pronouns were he, him, and it died down pretty quickly. This is partly because Paige and Tanya simply stopped bringing it up, but it is mostly because the whole case really disappeared from the public conscious just as quickly, as it came up after the articles speaking of the couple's arrest. Basically, no follow-up articles relating as to what happened after their arrests were ever written. And it's quite hard to find details about how their trials played out or what happened to them afterwards. Luckily, we do know a few of the basic details about the outcome. For one, we do know that they came to fully admit to killing their victim and to killing and skinning their dog. With that, we also know their pleas. 2 years after their arrest, Jacob pled guilty to first-degree murder, although he said guilty but mentally ill, to be specific. He was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 20 years, plus a consecutive minimum sentence of 8 years. He was given credit for time served when it came to the time he had already been in jail.